the blood of Jesus. It's nothing but the blood of Jesus, my Jesus. Now we're going to show you tonight how important Jesus felt that love was. And you know, there's more to love than hugging and kissing. If you read 1 Corinthians 13, you find out that it's a great big commitment. And if you read the story of Ruth and Naomi, you'll find that Ruth said, wherever you go, I want to go. You can't get rid of me. I'm going to stick with you. And when you die, I want them to bury me beside your grave. I want to stick with you all the rest of your life because I love you. And when you die, I want to be buried where you was buried. Now, that was love, see? But in the 21st chapter of the Gospel of John, after these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias. And in this way, he showed himself. Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and two others of his disciples were together. Now, hang in there. Simon Peter said to them, I'm going fishing. And they said to him, we're going with you also. So they went out and immediately got into the boat. And they fished all night and they didn't catch anything. I want you to get the picture. Here was men that had walked with Jesus and talked with Jesus. They had been taught by Jesus. They'd seen the miracles of Jesus. They'd seen the death of Jesus. They'd seen the burial of Jesus. They'd seen the resurrection of Jesus. And all of them but John had forsaken him. And Peter had even denied him 3 times. And had gotten so vehement in his denial that he cursed. So here was this bunch of people that now that Jesus wasn't in their midst and now that Jesus wasn't leading them, said, well, I guess we might as well go fish a while. That's what had been their profession in life before they had been called by Jesus. And I guess they thought, we'll go back to our profession. We'll make us some money. We've not done too good as disciples. We've not done too good as apostles. So we'll go back and fish a while, and we'll make some money. That'll take care of everything. And John lists the ones that was there. Thomas, the one that had doubted, and said, unless I can put my fingers in the nail prints in his hands, unless I can feel the holes in his side, I won't believe. I mean, these were guys that needed to be down on their knees improving their relationship with God. But instead of doing that, they went fishing. Now get the picture. And they go out in the old boat. They'd kept their boat. So many times we hold on to the past. You remember the story of Elijah's protege? when the Lord called him, he killed his oxen, had a barbecue. He burned his wagons to get the wood and his plows so he wouldn't be tempted to go back to his old ways. And you know, a lot of people tonight escape the contamination of sin and get away from sin, but they start hanging around with the people that committed the sins that had gotten them in trouble to start with. And before long, they're back where they used to be. So these guys, instead of going forward in faith and going into all the world as Jesus had commanded them, and preaching the gospel to every creature, you with me? Instead of doing that, they went fishing to make some money. That was their priority. And they fished all night. Now let me tell you, let me remind you, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. The Lord blesses and the Lord curses. Don't you ever forget that. He can cause the sun to shine on you, or he can cause the rain to pour down on you. God is big, large, and in charge. And he was in charge of the water. He was in charge of the boat. He was in charge of the fish. And they just thought that they were going to fish and catch a bunch of fish and make a lot of money. Not long ago, I was deceived into going fishing. I was told I was going to witness to someone about Jesus, and I ended up fishing.
That man's here tonight. That talk did good.
And I don't know anything about fishing. I really don't. I'm not a fisherman. I'm not a hunter. I just never. I guess I never had time. Was too poor. I guess I don't know. But anyway, they took me a-fishing. And after a while, you know, I just give up because I knew I couldn't catch anything anyway. And I leaned back in the boat and kind of let my hook go over the side of the boat and caught the biggest fish that was caught. And I said, the Lord. You know, I didn't catch it. I didn't know what. When it got a hold of my hook, I didn't know what to do with it. But I caught a big dandy fish. These guys were professional fishermen. These guys thought they was going to rake in the money. Well, we're going to go out and catch all these fish and make money like we used to do. And they fished all night, and they didn't catch a fish. Well, when morning come, verse 4, so Jesus stood on the shore. Yet the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Now, you'd be surprised how many times Jesus is around and you don't know it. Huh? We're studying the book of Revelation at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we're finding out there that Jesus said, I know all about you. I know all about you. You don't fool me. I know when you're good and I know when you're bad. I know when you're happy and I know when you're sad. I know when you're serving me and I know when you're serving the devil. He made them aware, the 7 churches of Asia Minor, that he knew what they were doing, and he knew their strengths, and he knew their weaknesses. Jesus knows. You may fool your wife, you may fool your boss, you might even fool your dog, but you won't fool Jesus. And so they saw this guy standing over there, and they didn't know who he was. They didn't realize that it was Jesus. And Jesus said to them, children, have you any food? And they answered him, no. Now we studied this morning about the woman, didn't we, that left the promised land and went into a heathen land thinking she was going to eat, drink, and be merry. And she got down there and it didn't work out too good because she had left God and she had left God's provision. And she ended up, like the prodigal son, having to go back home, back to the promised land to survive. These guys fished all night. They didn't catch any fish. They didn't have any food to eat even. With all their skill and all their abilities and all their wisdom, not one fish. And he said to them, verse 6, cast the net on the right side of the boat and you will find some. So they cast, and now they were not able to draw it in because of the multitude of the fish. I think it's beautiful when you do what God tells you to do. You get bountiful blessings. I know that the devil don't want you to believe that. I know the devil doesn't want you to believe that. And I know that you believe it's all up to you, but let me tell you something. When you read the Bible, you find out it's not up to you at all. It's up to God. The Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. He blesseth, or he curseth. That's what the Bible teaches. And if you want to get it straight, go to Deuteronomy what? 28. And then if you want to get it straight, you go to Romans 8:28. See? So he said, throw your net on the other side. I imagine that Thomas, the doubter, said, oh, when donkeys fly. You know, I'm a professional fisherman, and I know all about fishing, and we've done all the right things, and there's just no fish here. I'm sure those remarks were made, aren't you? I mean, we've been at this all night. And we've used all kinds of bait, and we've used all kinds of nets, and we've used all kinds of hooks. There ain't no fish out there. Take my word on it. Because I am a professional fisherman. You get that? We can take pride. But you know, so many times pride comes before fall. But apparently the majority of them said, oh, let's try it. So they cast, and lo and behold, they were not able to draw it in because of the multitude of the fish. Can you imagine that? Done it their way all night, didn't catch a fish. Done it God's way 1 minute, and they had so many fish. Are you listening? That they couldn't pull them in. And the nets should have broken, but the nets didn't break because he kept the nets together. Verse 7. Therefore that disciple whom Jesus loved, who was that? John. That's who's writing this story. John. The one that later on penned the book of Revelations. John. The one who Jesus loved. Said to Peter, hey, don't you know it's the Lord? Peter didn't realize it was the Lord. Of course, Peter wasn't all that swift, was he? He preached on Pentecost. He said, this promise is to you and your children and all that are far off, even as many as the Lord our God can call. He didn't realize that he was preaching that the Gentile was going to be saved. He didn't realize that. God had to send him a vision and a trance and slap him upside the head and all kinds of things, you know, to get through to him. Peter was hard to get through to. But John saw and recognized that it was Jesus and that they were in the presence of Jesus. And when Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his outer garment. He apparently had taken off his outer garment. It was just in his briefs. Therefore, that disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, it's the Lord. Now when Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his outer garment, for he had removed it, and plunged into the sea. But the other disciples came in the little boat, for they were not far from land, about 200 cubits. And they were dragging the net with them. And then as soon as they came to land, they saw that a fire of coals was there. And the fish had been laid on it, and bread had been placed there. And Jesus said to them, bring some of the fish that you've caught. Now you remember he'd asked if you had anything to eat. He knew they hadn't had anything to eat, so he was preparing them a meal. I don't know if I'd have prepared them a meal or not. They hadn't done what he told them to do, had they? Huh? He told them go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature, didn't he? And here they was out playing golf and going fishing. And couldn't even get enough fish to eat. And Simon Peter went up and dragged the net to land full of large fish. 153 to be exact. That's a pretty good pile of large fish. And although there were so many, the net was not broken. Should have broke the net. Should have broken the net. And Jesus said to them, come and eat breakfast. Now that is love. See, I done all of that to tell you that after they had done Jesus so wrong, once again, after the death, the burial, the resurrection, you know, he still loved them. He was concerned about them. After the denial, he still loved them. He still loved them. He didn't say, you gutter-sucking bums, get away from me. He still loved them. He fixed them a meal. He loved them. He gave them a nice catch of fish. He loved them. And he said, come on, eat breakfast. You don't have to be hungry because I love you. Don't be satisfied with the crummy things of life when you have the best. If you become a partner with the Lord. Don't go stumbling along within your heart no song. You'll hear beautiful music all day long. If you'll become a partner with the Lord. Now here he is. After all they've done, doing beautiful things. Yet none of the disciples dared ask him, who are you? I like that. When you deal with the Lord, you don't have to say, who are you? Do you? You know when you're dealing with the Lord. And Jesus then come and took the bread and gave it to them, and likewise the fish. This is now the third time Jesus showed himself to his disciples after he was raised from the dead. So when they had eaten breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, I want you to tell me why you denied me. What was it? You yellow, backboned coward, you. After all I'd done for you, gave you the keys to the kingdom. Gave you the ability to bind on earth what could be bound. After I trusted you. Why did you let me down? Is that what he said? What did he say? Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me? Do you love me more than these things? That's the question. Do we love the Lord more than things of the world? And he said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And he said, feed my sheep. What did he told him to do? What did he told him to do? What did he told him to do? Go where? Everywhere. And do what? Feed my sheep. Take the word. Peter, do you love me? Yeah. You know I love you. Why ain't you feeding my sheep? All right? He said to him again a second time, Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me? And he said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And he said to him, tend my sheep. Now listen. And he said to him the third time, Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me? Do you think the Lord wants to know whether or not you love him? You think he wants to know? And do you think that he don't judge your love by what you do in his service? I could go into the Greek and the Hebrew and act like I knew a whole lot here. There's different words that was used for love. And some talked about a greater love and a more sincere love and a more in-depth love and this kind of thing. But the main thing was Jesus was saying, if you love me, you will take care of the souls that I came to die for. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen at the judgment. God hadn't asked me what he should do. But when I read this scripture, I kind of wonder if one of the questions he asked is going to be, do you love me? And of course we're going to say what? Oh yes. Yes, we love you. And then I think he's going to say, did you feed my sheep? You know? Did you feed my sheep? And what are we going to say? Let's stand.